Okay, it's John from ADUK, UK, and in this recording you'll hear the BBC talking about mental illness, and it's something that our children tend to suffer with, and here's the way they handle it in an academy in Birmingham.
Story this morning then is about being at school, because people always say being at school, best days of your life, that's the cliche, isn't it? But what if they're not? What if you dread going to school every day and feel hopeless in your life as a teenager? Well, a snap survey at Heartland's ADUK Academy in Nechells showed something shocking. Out of 900 pupils at the school, 100 of them said that they regularly felt depressed, hopeless and teary. And 87 of those pupils said they deliberately hurt themselves. Now, anybody who's got kids at school, that was just one snapshot of one school. What if this is our kids and we don't know about it? Well, teachers at the 25 ADUK schools across the country are now being trained to try and help pupils with their mental health. Now, this student, whose story is voiced by an actress, told us what happened to her.
I was bullied, and it got so bad that I didn't feel like coming into school, and I was really isolated. I used to just crawl into a corner and, school was a no-go. I was lashing out at my mum, my dad, teachers, and I was self-harming. It ruined my relationship with my mum and my dad. When I used to get home from school, I wouldn't even speak to them. I'd just hide in my room, and then it would be day over. And then it would all start again the next morning. I tried to commit suicide. I took an overdose. My mum found me unconscious on the floor and I was taken to hospital. I'd say to other students, speak to someone. Don't hide away and think, this is it, there's no solution. Because there is a solution.
Faisal Chowdhury is the head teacher at Heartland's Academy, where that survey was taken.
Research is very clear. 1 in every 10 young people experience mental health or emotional issues. 75% of adults who experience mental health issues, those issues began in their childhood. So as a professional who's responsible for young people, there's no way I could sit back and ignore those facts. Because we're normalising mental health, because it's important that young people know it's not something they should be ashamed of. It's not something they should shy away from, and it's something that we have to accept will affect a lot of us, and we need to work together on it. It's also about raising awareness. It's really important that young people know where to get help, how to get help, and also making sure young people have the confidence, the self-esteem to go and seek that help.
Well, joining us now is Caroline Hounsell, who's the Youth Lead and Director of Training at Mental Health First Aid England. Good morning, Caroline.
Good morning.
So I'm going to just reiterate those figures. It was a snap survey. Out of 900 pupils, 100 of them said they regularly felt depressed, hopeless and teary, which is concerning, to put it mildly, isn't it?
It is indeed, and I think, those figures are replicated across the country, and they're the figures of people actually being brave enough to admit that they're not okay, and some of us don't even know that we're not okay. So I think that's the nature of mental illness, is that sometimes we don't realise we're not okay, it feels normal. So if a young person has been living with depression or anxiety for quite a while, it will feel normal to them as well. So they might not even know that they're not even well themselves.
Which is where your training comes in then, I suppose, for teachers, mental health training. So what exactly do these courses involve?
Okay, so Mental Health First Aid is a training course that teaches people how to identify and understand and help someone who might be experiencing a mental health issue. So it doesn't teach people to be therapists, but it does teach people how to listen, how to do some of that reassurance, that responding, even in a crisis. So potentially even stop a crisis from happening. So they learn how to recognise those early warning signs of mental health and develop those sort of skills that really give people the confidence to approach that young person and support that young person who's experiencing the mental health issue.
So what are the early warning signs? Because as well as teachers, there'll be parents listening out. I'm a parent. What are the early warning signs? Because maybe we could spot them as well.
I think one of the key things is around changes in behaviour. So if you've known that child for quite a while, so clearly a parent has got a really good understanding about their child, and it's just watching out for those changes, which is sometimes quite challenging because young people themselves are going through a huge spurt of adolescent development, so there's lots of brain changes and hormone changes, which means that they may behave in sort of different ways anyway. But what you're looking for generally is change in behaviour, and maybe your child is saying that they find it difficult to concentrate, or they might lose interest in schoolwork, or they might be struggling to play with other young people, or they might be refusing to go to school, or they might be, playing truant. Might be saying to you, they're feeling really bored, they're feeling really lonely. Even if they have friends, they feel like they're really alone. They may be quite irritable quite a lot of the time.
But isn't that most teenagers?
Exactly. I mean, I myself, when I look at a lot of this list, I think, well, actually, that's with me. So I think the important thing is to think about a pattern of signs and symptoms. Maybe a lot of the time, young people might be acting out, so they might be behaving in a kind of disruptive way, they might be very angry. A lot of the time we're really good at picking up the behaviour, but maybe we're not so confident at thinking about what's behind that behaviour. So potentially, maybe they might be withdrawing themselves, they might be self-injuring, they might be sleeping too much or too little. Now, the key question is, if you've got an eye on that young person and you're seeing behaviour changes, the key thing is to acknowledge that this might be something or it might not be. The important thing is that many of us watch this behaviour and think to ourselves, oh, it's just normal. Well, actually, maybe we should may think about checking it out.
Okay.
So for me, the idea of just having a conversation with that young person in a really careful, compassionate way, in a really person-centred way, just saying, I've noticed this, and this, I'm just kind of wondering what might be going on for you.
And they may actually find it easier to confide in a teacher than a member of the family as well. So you're giving this mental health first aid to teachers at the ADUK Academy. What's the response been like from them generally? I mean, is there a case in some instances they're thinking, look, we've got so much on our plate already, you want us to do this as well?
Yeah. And I can understand that because, I myself have worked in schools, and I understand that the pressure of working in schools is immense.
And has there been resistance from some teachers?
There hasn't. I've experienced myself constant positive feedback, because the side effect of doing mental health first aid is actually improves our own well-being. Because actually what we do is we be more preventative. So the mental health first aid comes at it from a preventative angle and also an early intervention angle. So the feedback we've had is, this is the best course I've ever done. I wish I'd done this years ago. I now have the confidence to be able to spot those early warning signs and actually have the confidence to know what to say. I love it because I've now got the ability to start a very difficult conversation about something that maybe I would really struggle with. So how on earth do you talk about suicide? It's incredibly difficult. And yet most people that are experiencing mental health issues, there is a risk, potentially, if it's a severe mental health issue, there is a risk of suicide. And of course, the majority of suicides involve somebody that's got a mental health problem. So talking about these really difficult things can be difficult. And I think we worry about making it worse. And that's the key. And if we educate ourselves and we understand it, then we get the confidence. And so I want to sort of allay those fears right now to say to teachers, it doesn't put more burden on you. Actually, what it does is it takes off a burden because, A, you understand it, you look after your own mental health, and B, gives you the confidence to be able to spot those early warning signs. Because
Brilliant. Caroline, thank you. I've got to leave it there because we're up against the travel news and there's some big problems on the M6. That's Caroline Hounsell there, who is the Youth Lead and Director of Training at Mental Health First Aid England. We're learning this morning then that teachers at the ADUK schools are being given mental health first aid to spot early warning signs amongst pupils. And after 8 o'clock this morning, we're going to be talking to the Deputy Chief Executive of the ADUK Academy Trust.